Superintendent, are you interested in joining us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. Have a great night. No, don't worry about it. You got to do the catch-up stuff. All right. If we're ready, I'm gonna. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Instructional Committee meeting for the Concord School Board. You'll notice I am not Brenda Hastings. She unfortunately cannot join us this evening, so I'm Sarah Robinson. I'm stepping in as chair for tonight, also joined by Jess Campbell and our newest committee member, Sarah Sadowski. And Barb Higgins, though is not on the committee, is still joining us as an active participant. And of course, Kim Yarlott, who is our assistant superintendent for curriculum, will be helping me considerably with this meeting because I considerably need her help. So that's where we're at. Our agenda will start with a preschool presentation. After that, we'll move to overview of the ROPES program. And our final two issues we'll address on the agenda are physical education at Concord High School and then our annual enrollment report. Sound good? Kim, I hand you the mic.
So we have a very special presentation by our preschool educators and coordinator. So they're going to join us and share a quick PowerPoint about our preschool program.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So excited. This is what I do every day, so I'm super pumped. I'm going to get out of the way so that folks can see this.
And because we're preschool, we do come with props, so we have lots
Yeah.
of things to share.
It's an occupational hazard.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, friend.
Hopefully I have enough.
Oh, I love this style.
Oh.
It just made my heart so happy with this.
Yeah, y'all are the real MVPs this evening.
Wow.
Brownie points, girls.
Yes.
Yeah, you can pass those out too. So we can, that's, it's not the PowerPoint, no, that's the curriculum. Sure, yep.
Thanks, love.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how I had them short, but.
He knows where you work.
Yes, he knows where to find them.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you so much for inviting us and getting an opportunity to talk about preschool. The youngest learners, but very passionate.
Just before you get too far in, if you could speak into the microphones, it helps the people
always have
behind
such a
you.
loud voice.
I mean, I've got a loud voice too. You've all noticed, but it also helps the folks at home that are watching. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start by just introducing, we have some representatives today from our preschool. We have Brittany Corshane, who is one of our special educators over at Beaver Meadow School. We also have Kristen Walling, who is another one of our special educators at Beaver Meadow. And Ashley DeVoe is here as well from Abbott Downing. And I'm Sue Kerrigan. I'm the preschool coordinator for all of the buildings.
Kristen taught Molly and Gracie.
Yes.
I love her.
Full circle.
right.
Yep.
Yes, she is the veteran. She is the veteran.
story.
So,
20th year.
wow.
Congratulations.
So thanks again for allowing us to put this together. There's a lot of information on the slides, but I thought really we're not going to read the slides to you. Just wanted you to have an opportunity to take a look in case you have some further questions after. And we're just going to kind of go over an overview of what preschool is, because I know that's a big question for people. What do we do in our preschool? Just you can see the agenda that you have in front of you. We're going to talk about preschool, the types of programs we have, how we pull our classrooms together, also the types of disabilities that we service, as well as what is our curriculum that we follow in preschool, how do we measure the progress from that curriculum, and then hopefully have some time for questions and answers for you at the end. Okay. So we're going to just talk about what is preschool, and I'm going to have Kristen tell us a little bit about that.
So preschool was created, obviously there's a federal law that said we had to service 3-year-olds and up who have special needs. That was a long time, 1972 I think the federal law was. So it's in Concord it was created to service those children, but we also, research shows that servicing the kids alongside their typical peers is really beneficial both to the typical peers and to the children with special needs. So we have been an integrated program for quite a long time, and still not everybody in the state is doing that. And I think it's been amazing to see the growth in all the children, special needs and the typical children, and a lot of research backs that up. We are considered a developmentally appropriate program, so that would mean that we have kids of all different developmental levels, especially when you include children who need special needs support along their typical peers. So developmentally appropriate, we're going to meet them where they are, wherever they come in with. It doesn't matter their age, what they're supposed to be doing. We're going to meet them where they are. We're going to try to help them learn and scaffold and challenge them as much as possible where they are, and keep them happy and learning. So one of the best ways to do this at this level is through play. And play it's really a strength-based individual program that kids can learn so much from their environment. They can learn one activity, playing with blocks. They're learning about shapes. They're learning about sharing. They're learning about their gross motor because they're picking up the blocks and building. Their fine motor. They're measuring. There's so many things they can learn just from all different play materials. So we really focus on that in our preschool, that play is a really big focus, and that the teachers are there to facilitate, to challenge, I wonder if you did this, what would happen? But also help meet the children who are just learning how to pick up a block up to the kids who are building towers 5 feet tall. And we might go, maybe that's a little bit tall. So we're trying to meet all the diverse learners as best we can in one classroom. So play and those activities is really the best way to do that. And that's how we focus.
Along with that, I know I'm soft-spoken. Can you hear me?
You sound great.
Okay, I sound beautiful is what I heard. No.
The mic helps.
So with our learners, especially in Concord, and you guys know this in elementary through high school, is we have the most diverse, beautiful group of people to educate that is representative in our state. So when we are teaching, creating our environments, when we are creating, so that curriculum is set through the environment, through the provocations, what we set out, and through what's available. We have things like core boards available so that they can touch pictures. We have AAC devices so that they can learn to use some of those to talk. And we're modeling how to use that, as well as offering for them to use that with our AAC specialist on hand. We have learners who are not interested in using those, but they will take our hands and guide us, and we will honor that communication. So we have learners that are coming in with play schemas very close to 17, 18 months, and learners that are 4 and 5 that are showing really that hyperlexic, they're reading at a 3rd grade level. So there's quite a span, and we honor all kinds of communication at our space. I'm still talking. I'm known as the messy teacher. I always have so much sensory exploration out, and I think what's beautiful about the preschool program in Concord is all the supports that are put in for sensory regulation. And that doesn't mean that we're waiting until children need a break. That means we're being proactive and including it throughout the classroom, as well as in our therapy spaces, in the hallways, and in those service areas throughout the school. So like today, I had out messy mixing play with cornmeal and water and shaving cream, which Ashley was like, oh, that's an interesting combination. I was like, there were choices. This is what they decided. But I'll tell you, that kind of sensory regulation to pour and mix and scoop and play, and leave that table, go jump on the trampoline, do a couple dives into the big pillow, and then come back. I mean, that's what they need at that age. That's how they learn how to regulate, so that by the time they go into kindergarten, they are ready to be learners at that rug. I'm still going. Oh,
You're doing such a good job, though.
No, I just love talking about play. And so for me, I'm coming from a background of teaching higher ed as well as early ed. And what I love to teach most to our incoming ECE teachers is the level of play that is so important outdoors and how integrated it is. So we're bringing out bubbles, we're setting up obstacle courses, we are encouraging risky play and movements. And we are also we have our core boards outside. We're bringing our AAC outside. Hey, they want to say they want to go on the slide, they should be able to say that outside as well as inside. So their voice comes with them wherever they are. And just the empowerment that they feel. I'm thinking of a little boy we had. He's in first grade now, but with full body apraxia, he's probably one of the strongest preschoolers I had ever seen, the best climber. And now, like last week, I was chatting with his mom, and he's doing augmented skiing lessons. You know, that attitude of learning and I can starts in our preschool program with sensory integration and really intentional curriculum. This is one of my activities from this past spring, where we plant seeds of wheatgrass, we grow it, and just at this one activity, multiple learners are there. There's different kinds of seeding. There's our OT is there, as well as myself. Children are learning about life science. They're learning about vocabulary. They are learning about social emotional development. There are augmented scissors there, as well as different kinds of droppers for different levels of fine motor use. And there's even some really tricky spray bottles. And while we're there, I'm documenting through video. I'm writing down their thoughts and ideas. I'm sending those to their family, and they are excited about learning.
So you can see throughout our slides, you're going to see definitely it says play equals learn. That is how we live. What drives our instruction is when you come in to view one of our classrooms, we'd love to have you come in and visit. It looks like we are just playing, but that's just it. That's how we learn. So we want to make it an exciting time for them to be there, for them to be a joyful experience for them. I'm going to talk a little bit about what our programs consist of and how we develop those programs. We have 3- and 4-year-old preschool programs. We have a 3-year-old program that is in our morning sessions that typically for children can run 2 days a week, 3 or 4 days a week, depending on the needs of the child, and that's for 2 hours. We also have a 4-year-old program that comes in the afternoon. That's for 2.5 hours. And again, it depending on children's needs, depends on the number of days that they attend. These children all attend at least 3 days a week with typically developing children, so those are our tuition students. We're an early childhood program is one of our licenses, so 50% of our population of children are those that the parents pay tuition in order for them to participate in our program. The others are identified with some type of special education need that we provide services for. We also have a special education license that typically is for our 3-year-olds. Those are the young ones that are turning 3 after the start of that September 30th cutoff date. So those are children we actually do a separate classroom that's on Tuesdays and Friday mornings where that starts off really small. Those are our youngest learners. Those are the ones that for many of them it's their first opportunity, their first experience in being in a classroom setting. So we find it's been very successful to have that much smaller enrollment for that so that we can really focus on the individual child, build that trusting relationship, having them feel safe where we are providing our instruction in a much smaller group, providing that individual.
So they start, when they turn 3, they can start?
Exactly.
So if I had a child that turned 3 in December, they have a December start?
As long as they're an identified student.
No, that I
Yep,
understand, yeah.
correct. Yep, as soon as they
That's
turn 3,
fabulous.
then it's our responsibility to make sure that they are getting the services that they need so they can start on their 3rd birthday.
Nice.
And we do that, like I said, twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays just for our 3-year-olds. So that's been successful for us.
That's awesome.
Currently, we have preschools in 3 of the 4 elementary schools. We are located at Abbott Downing, Beaver Meadow and Millbrook School. We also have teachers and staff that go out to Head Start, as well as we have a contract with the YMCA of Concord as well, where we also provide services for children in those locations. You can see just currently what our preschool numbers look like. We do have 1 classroom at Abbott Downing, 3 at Beaver Meadow, and 2 at Millbrook. And you can see just from the graph the number of special education students versus tuition students for a total enrollment for us at this time. I could show you this slide 2 days from now, and that number will look different because it is constant changes with identified students. Yes.
Yeah, this is a significant number of kiddos who are participating in this program. Do you currently feel that the preschool program is at capacity and that expansion is going to be a real necessity in the near future? This budget season is going to be very, very tight, but if you believe that expansion is going to be a necessity, I'd love to hear you say so we can start that conversation in a productive way.
Sure. I can tell you that when we look at what the recommendations are for our class sizes, they recommend roughly 12 to 15 students per class. We're already at capacity for many of our classrooms, which is why we've added an additional classroom. So do we need more? Absolutely. I'll take that opportunity to say that. It's difficult because preschool is one of those that we can't plan ahead. We never know how many referrals we're going to get, which you'll notice in a slide that I'll show you soon, that just says we could start with a really small number in the fall. We don't get worried about that, thinking that, oh my goodness, we don't have any children, because within, by this time, we are just filling them up. We do tend to turn away many tuition students because we don't have the capacity to enroll those students. So we have many students on a waiting list to attend our program.
Okay, thank you.
I remember when I signed Gracie up for it, I knew she had a language issue, being a special ed teacher. So I signed her up as a tuition student because she wasn't identified as anything. And it was 2-3 months in where she became identified. So I imagine that's not an uncommon
So that's
process.
very typical for us, where
Right.
we bring in, many times we bring in tuition students simply as when we look at that intervention model.
Yeah.
We want to bring them in before we identify them right away. Let's give them that opportunity to see if they can be successful. I would say, I know you have had one, you've had one, that we have gone from enrollment to definitely moving them to the special education process.
In my estimation, it's an unbelievable bang for your buck for tuition students. The program's fantastic. And yeah, so. Yeah.
I apologize, I'm not familiar with how tuition works for this, so it's any resident in Concord for the child of that age, but of course, if there's room, the wait list.
Correct. I'll open registration typically around February. And right now, it is really kind of a first come, first serve. So as soon as it fills up, there is one day a month, I think it's in May this year, that we have, we won't have preschool students, we'll be screening children that whole day. And then from there, we can create classrooms for next year. And then, we have a waiting list. I would say I'll open it in February, we'll be booked within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All of our programs will be full.
Yeah, it was the best experience ever.
Thank you for
Absolutely, absolutely. We also go to outreach, Head Start and the YMCA, just quickly to say that's for children that don't require a significant amount of service. They may need a little bit more academic support or some speech and language support. We do want to work closely with our community providers so that they know that they have access to us, so we can help provide any professional development that they may need, and also just be able to support students in an environment that they're already in a preschool. So it helps to support that. How do we build our classes? We have what's called Child Find, which I'm sure you've heard. It's our responsibility to make sure that we are providing services for children as soon as they turn 3 up till they're 5 years old. One of those ways that we do that is we do citywide child check clinics twice a year. We do it in October and in January, so we'll be doing it in just a few weeks, where, again, we don't have preschool that day because we are scheduling appointments all day or all morning doing screenings to see if we do need to move forward with further evaluations for children. That's required by law for us to do that. That is not the only time we're screening and doing evaluations. We are screening and evaluating all year long, but twice a year is when you see citywide posters that says this is one of our child check days. Okay. How do we get those referrals? Anybody can submit a referral. It can come from a parent, a daycare worker, a doctor, DCYF. Anyone can contact me and say that they have concerns about a child, and it's my responsibility to make sure I reach out to those parents, get something scheduled, whether it be a screening or go right to an evaluation. Part of that is we work really closely with Erin Care, the early childhood coordinator. Erin and I pretty much work side by side together. She and I work with the outside families that may not be in our program yet, but they are parents that might be at Family Center and they have questions or concerns about their child. I work with Erin regarding that. We also do local daycare visits. With Pam Shaster. She is one of our other workers who goes in, and Pam does observations for children. It's kind of that multi-tiered support system model before it goes to a referral. We're really working closely on how can we get out into the community and provide that professional development and support to those daycares before it comes to a referral for us. So that's been a really big piece. Just to take a look at our referral history, looking at our numbers, as you could see. This is just since I've been here, so that's the data that I have that I've collected. But you can see we do a number of referrals every year. And looking at how many of those are eligible for special education and the percent that we identify, especially if you look in that percentage identified, we do not identify every child that walks through our door. We go through a screening process. We invite children in to join us for a period of time. We want to give them that opportunity before it goes right to special education. Right now, we currently have 66 referrals that we've done since the start of the school year. And of those 66, I believe we've only completed 32, but of those 32, we've identified 20. So at 57%. So that's when I say our numbers, they increase. You can see from when COVID started in that 21, 22, we jumped from 92 referrals to 128, record-breaking 159 back in 22, 23. Yeah. So we are really screening and evaluating a significant number of young learners in our community. Just a sample of some of our current disabilities that we do service, ranging from children with autism, developmental delays, to your speech and language impairment. We have a wider range of students that we're providing services for.
Developmental delay is sort of a coverall for a number of things.
It is. We kind of call it the umbrella
Yeah, right.
of, we have a little kiddo who needs some support in many areas, but we're not doing an IQ to determine if it's a specific learning disability or anything like that.
Right, so it was more clarification for the committee. So for example, my daughter ended up being speech and language identified, but at 3, it was just a developmental delay.
Right.
And it buys time to get a better handle on what the disability might be. So you look at
Exactly.
these big numbers and you're like, oh my gosh, well, it's like stomach ache. It could be 15 different things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's just for clarification.
And those disabilities don't include just the number of children that also have, are identified with disabilities and are ELL and learning how to
Right.
speak their first language and their second language in a space. So I know I have 6 different languages in my AM and 5 different in my afternoon with our disabilities, and it's a beautiful setting.
Cool.
So talking about our curriculum, just quickly to go over, we did hand out some things for you. We are responsible for following the New Hampshire Early Learning Standards that comes from the Department of Ed. This is not a curriculum per se, but more of standards that they ask that we follow when we're looking at the developmental stages of children. And that goes all the way through to kindergarten, so you can see that. We will hand those out to parents at times if they're curious about where their child should be. But that is a recommendation, so we do follow that for our curriculum. There are 5 developmental domains that we measure progress for. which coincides with how we measure our progress. I know a conversation I was having with Kathleen over the summer where she was just asking that question, how do we measure that progress for these youngest learners? There's so many ways that we do that. One of those ways is following those standards. Another way is what's called the DRDP, which I'll talk to you a little bit about, which is the state recommendation that we are required to follow to measure progress. Obviously, the individual education plans that are created for each individualized student. And you can see my favorite picture on the end is, look at the smile.
That's not a stock photo.
That's not a stock photo.
That's my flash.
That is, so just that sheer joy, that's how we know that they're learning. They're happy to be here. They are just thrilled to share their knowledge. So again, that play equals learn for us. We are required by the Department of Ed to do what's called a POMS, a Preschool Outcome Measuring System program. This year, the state has adopted that every single school needs to follow the same measurement, which is the DRDP. In years past, we've had a menu of choices that each school could use in order to measure progress. This year, they've done mandatory where we all have to do the DRDP, which is a strength when you look at now the DOE is at least comparing apples to apples and not different assessments.
Yeah.
Concord has participated as a pilot program in this DRDP for, this will be our third year, I believe. But this is the first year that it's mandatory for all preschoolers. So we kind of have a heads up on what it entails and how it's measured. So I think we feel like we're in a better place than many of the other schools that are just learning how to do this.
I feel also that like when we first were piloting it, we could do all of our students, what the typically developing students and children with IEPs, and now the state is requiring us to do children with IEPs, but we don't have that same system for typically developing children because there is an extra cost. But I will tell you, as a person that plans curriculum for all children, it would be super amazing to get data on the full scale of things.
Right. So right now, the state is starting with providing the DRDP scores free of charge for all special education students. They are working with a grant where there's a certain number of licenses that they'll have that we might be able to request for further. But one of the discussions we've been having as a preschool is if we are doing this for our special needs students, but we're an early childhood program, is there a value of us doing that for all of our students so that we can see how our whole classroom is measuring up and not just by our identified students. And it's important to note that the DRDP is based upon children of typical development, and we're using this tool to measure our special education needs students.
That
So-
seems counterintuitive.
It's just like when you do your elementary testing, your state testing, and all of that.
It's the one
Kind of
size fits
equivalent
all.
to-
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's fair.
There are gaps in the
That's the
system. It does have a beautiful array of measurement for students, but with our most multi-needed supported students, growth looks a lot different over time than it does for typically developing students. So it's hard. It doesn't look like there's much movement, even though as educators we're like, oh my gosh, they've grown so much.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah. Yeah.
Thank you. Brittany, you mentioned that there's an extra cost for the full data on our learners. Do you have an idea about what kind of price point we're talking about? Is it per student or?
It is per student.
Okay.
It is per student. I can get that from the DOE.
I would love that,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Yeah,
It is
I feel
per
like I'm saying it was super affordable because I think it is, but not in terms of school board, but I thought it was like $15 a person or something like that.
It might even be less than that. I think for us
That's
right
pretty-
now, it's more that this is brand new. And for many of our teachers that are here, this is the first time that they're using it. So I get the idea of let's start small, let's make sure we feel comfortable doing that, and then maybe even, progressing it into using it as a whole class. These two ladies here were part of the pilot program 3 years ago. The others had not participated. So we just want to make sure we're doing something right, and then like to have that conversation about potentially moving that into being a full class report. There are some examples of the DRDP report samples inside of your folder that I gave you, just so that you're able to get a sample of all that the DRDP can do for us. For example, the very first thing you can see in there is parents can get a parent guidance letter that explains what the DRDP is and why we get it, so it's a great resource. And attached to that is also just a sample. This is not a student, this is just a sample. But it shows you what that report looks like that the parents can receive. And you can see that it talks about what that level means, what that subdomain is talking about, and where your child is, and what the parent can do to help support that area of development. So there are some strengths with how it's written. It also can show us some data that we do it twice a year right now. We do it in the winter and we do it in the spring. So they have the fall data, and then in the spring they'll be able to see the growth that the child has made. Okay. So that's just a sample of one of those. Another sample, just to quickly show you, is if we were to have parent conferences, there's also a conference sheet that we can use that talks again about the child's strengths, what they're currently working on, what they can do to help, and how they can help learn at home. So we can take that parent report and we can keep it very strength-based on how we can help support the child at home and at school. And then just some others that I can just disseminate down. I can go to a group report. I can look at how did our preschool score as a whole in those domains. I can break it down to building, to class, to student. So we can use that as an instructional learning tool as to where we are.
Yeah.
And then the last one, teachers can get a class planning report where they can literally look at each one of those domains to see where the children are falling on each of those domains, to help them with how do we drive our instruction. What's a strength in our classroom? What's an area that we would want to work on? I mean, I could go on, but I'm going to keep it at the time level. But DRDP does really offer us a wealth of resources that as a group, we're just learning and experimenting with ourselves right now. Okay. And then obviously we continue to use our IEPs, our progress reports, observations, our evaluations is also how we measure our progress. And I am going to summarize, or Brittany is going to summarize, thank you, with just some quotes for people to keep in mind as we close out today.
Oh my goodness, Maria just knows her stuff. I mean, what can we say? We want children to be activated by the time they enter into that K program and go all the way up. We want children to feel as independent as they can be and as secure as they want to be, to take risks as they play. So our incredible team that we work with to advocate not just for children but for their families, so that these families are moving forward with tenacity and some good attitudes towards being part of the school and being part of their child's system, because I am their child's educator for 2 years. They are their child's forever educator. So I want them to be a good participant.
Love that.
And thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I know we went over, I'm sorry.
When you are jazzed about the work that you do, it is very easy to go over time. This was very thorough, and thank you so much for your thoughtful answers to our questions. Keep up the good work. We will do everything we can to support you.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep.
I know, it's such good stuff. We're a bit ahead of the curve on the preschool stuff as opposed to a lot of the states, so very pleased to give you a spotlight. So that we can humble brag about you. All right, so next up, we're going to do an overview of the ROPES program. Very excited to hear about this, you guys.
Do you guys need a break? Are you good?
No, we're used to this. Give us all of it. It's like drinking from a fire hose, man. Eventually you get used to it.
That's great. So I'm Frank Harrison, and this is Bill Previs. We're teachers, we teach the rope class, and let me get it up on the screen.
Speak right into the microphone.
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry, yeah, that's
thanks.
right. We gotta,
It's finicky,
We got a
but
mic,
you know,
yeah.
we'll deal.
and we'll take a few minutes to explain the rope class to you, and certainly take questions on the way and at the end, just so you understand it. I think in 5 or 6 minutes, we can fill you in on how it works, and you can ask us some questions. So this is a picture from yesterday. You can see we had a rope trip that was fantastic. It's a very rigorous trip. It's almost like a final exam for students. Rope is a regular class at Concord High. It's not a club, and it's been going on for 50 years. It was started by Tom Herbert in 1974. Barb, it's so good to see you again. Did you ever take rope?
I did.
Okay.
In the spring of 1980.
Okay, yeah.
So we did this really fun thing where we rappelled out so you know the stairway behind the theater?
Yes.
So the third floor, we rappelled out and went down a zip line, like across the intersection to what used to be a
Oh my
gas
goodness!
station.
Yeah, I don't think they'd let me do that
No,
these days. But great idea.
That was from Tom Walton.
Okay, excellent. Wow. So good to hear. So rope there have been so many adventures over the years, and we do find people in the mountains. I'm not kidding. I've been doing it now since 2013. So for about 11 years, I've had at least 3 people stop us like on the mountain, like, hey, you're CHS rope. I took rope. This kind of thing. It's hilarious. So kind of cool like that. Let me show you a 90-second video that Studi made. That's Studi on, let's see, our right there. And this is our little website page I give to parents so they understand the trips. All the pictures you see are from rope classes. This was a winter hike a couple years ago. And I want you to see this little video that she made that we show every year as an intro for students who are signing up for courses.
Do you still have a fall section and a spring section? Or is
We
it
do,
just-
that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe sound will work, we'll find out.
I hear it. Lovely. Oh, I love this.
I was going to say, is it still reaching our yeah, good. Is that the Merrimack?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome.
Our
The answer
retreat.
is yes.
Can we do this for our retreat?
Yeah.
That's right. People,
Oh my
I often have people say we should do a staff rope something. Yeah, I know it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
that was great.
So it's just such a beautiful class opportunity to be with these kids. I feel privileged. I'm the regular teacher of it. Bill comes on the weekend trips, and it's just such a privilege to watch these kids. I feel like an observer most of the time. I know I'm facilitating something, but I feel like I'm just observing them grow together. And I thought the title, Reaching Our Potential in Education, when I first came into it, was a bit lofty and a little bit out there, like, what does that mean? And it took me a few years to really understand what Tom's vision was for that. Even after, it took me a couple years of teaching the course to really understand that it does allow us to explore the whole child more than I think anything else we do. And it's really, I'm on board. It really reaches our potential in education with these kids.
And it redefines education. You're not sitting in a desk.
It does. It's
Yeah.
a very different.
Right.
It's a very different thing. I'd like to actually have Bill talk about what he's observed. He's just come into the program for a couple of years. He helped us with the bike trip, and now he's come on board as the assistant instructor. And then I'll have a few more things I can share too. But go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Frank. My name is Bill Priebus. This is my third year at Concord High School. I teach English. I teach English 10, 2 English 10 classes, which are full year classes, and this semester I'm teaching 3 electives. All of my electives are public speaking. And I just wanted to share a couple of observations that I've had that demonstrate to me, and I think to anyone who's observing this, that this course is teaching these students skills that are useful academically at Concord High School, and they will be useful to them out in the real world beyond Concord High School. I teach a lot of students. I have 120, 125 over the gambit of my English classes. And so there's a lot of times some crossover. I got started with rope by volunteering for the bike trip as a chaperone that they do in the spring. Yeah. And I did that last year and the year before that. And then Matt Scobie was in the position I have now, and he stepped down, and it became available. And I said, sign me up after what I had observed on those bike trips. My position is a stipend position. It's an official position. I think I'm the co-instructor or something like that. And I just go on the trips. I don't do any of the classroom stuff. Although I try to get over to the classroom when I can and say hi to the kids who I get to know over the semester. But because I have so many kids in my English classes, there's always some crossover. Students in the rope course will be students I have or have had in my English class. And this year I had 2 students in public speaking who are currently rope students as well. And our latest round of speeches for our public speaking classes were demonstration speeches. And both of those students chose to do demonstration speeches, demonstrating skills that they had learned, used, and practiced in their rope course, which in and of itself says something. I am proud of the work I do in English 10. I guarantee you, none of my students, when called upon to do a public speaking speech, is going to demonstrate how to write a persuasive essay. So this is meaningful to these students. But I also noticed that those students spoke with a great deal more confidence and self-assuredness than they had in their previous speeches. And that's because they were speaking about something they worked hard to learn, that they were proud of, and it really showed. And I think when they do that for something ropes related, they'll realize they can do it for anything, and it will carry over to the other work that they do in their other courses. So I think this course, rope, has real benefit in the overall academic lives of these students. The second thing I want to share is on the trip this weekend, and this is often the case for me. Frank is a super strong hiker. I am a super weak hiker. So Frank takes the lead and runs off with the athletic folks who are just charging up the mountain, and I bring up the rear and make sure that no stragglers get left behind. And in my position, bringing up the rear, being the sweep, I encounter the students who are not outdoorsy, who are not, because we get a broad range of students taking this course. They're not necessarily athletically inclined, and they're struggling. We hiked 10 miles this weekend, and 6 of it was yesterday. And that is
That's a hike.
You can see the conditions that we were walking through, snow and ice, and we had special equipment to make sure that we didn't fall. And it was hard stuff. I struggled with it. And a couple, 3 students would frequently be in the back, and we'd be walking together, and I got grumpy at times, but not these students. They were cheerful, they were chatty. We talked about what it's like to live in Boston. We talked about the views. We talked about what trees we saw would make good Christmas trees. They were really engaged, upbeat, and really, although they were doing a hard thing, and I think they were pushing themselves both physically and mentally, they were doing it with a smile on their face. I know these students well because this is the 4th trip I've been on, or the 3rd trip and the 4th weekend I've spent with them. And I know that these students at the beginning of this course could not have done that. I think they learned how to do it over the course of the trips that we made. So,
And I think we came back with at least 9 out of the 10 that we brought.
well,
You have to eat one.
so before I taught, I've only been teaching for 4 years. I was in the private sector for 25 years. I was a part owner of a business, and I was responsible for hiring people, and I know what employers look for, the non-specific skills that employers look for in students. And one of those skills is to take on things that are beyond your comfort zone, not just to do that, but to take them on with an attitude that's cheerful and with a smile on your face and with a really, I can do this attitude. And that's what these students are learning in ROPE. There's no doubt in my mind. And so not only is it helping them academically in their other work at Concord High School, but I think when they get out into the world beyond Concord High School, they will be able to use these skills that they're learning, these non-specific skills that are valuable, I think, to all employers. And so I think that the benefits of this course are just tremendous, and I encourage the district to continue to support it because it's a really wonderful thing. Yes, Ms. Ising.
When I look back 900 years ago when I was in ROPE, one of the biggest pieces for me, and I think this is not something that you would necessarily see, is so you get 10 kids in a tent on a mountain or riding a bike from Canada to Concord. And all of a sudden, it doesn't matter that that's the captain of the football team, and that's, you know, a band geek, and that's a smart person, and that, you know what I mean? Like all the names that we assign to people, all of those social labels disappear. There isn't room for it there. And so one of the biggest things I noticed, so I had an older brother, a big, great athlete, blah, blah, blah. So I always had that social pressure, and that after ROPE, some of the people in my class who would never have talked to me prior to the class
That's right.
were like, hey, sit with us at lunch. You know, like it took away so much social stigma. You became a family in a way that transcended where you sit in the cafeteria.
Yeah, it's such a good formula for it's a classic formula, right? When you have a students or people who may not initially get along, but then they have a common adversary.
Yes.
And everything just galvanizes. It's
Yeah.
exactly what happens. It always takes till the first trip, which I usually do pretty quick in the semester. The first trip that we do, well, actually, before I show you the trips, Bill did a great job just highlighting the character development competencies. And I actually just embraced these last year. Kathleen might recognize that sort of, and Kim, that's our new format for how we're putting competencies. And I just embraced it. I actually did not have the character development. It was always like an undercurrent. And I was like, I need to like put this on paper because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so personal best, teamwork, community service, stewardship are all built in. And then wilderness survival skills is sort of the vehicle, right, to kind of get to the character development. And so, sure, we do all that safety, first aid, camping, food and water. All the classes just every class is spent preparing kids for the next ROPE trip. So sometimes kids wonder, like, well, what do we do in class? Like, what's that part? And it's critical. Every minute, and different projects that they're doing, different types of presentations, preparations, learning how to use equipment, practicing, and teamwork, all build so that the next trip will be successful. And then as soon as, like, I don't even talk about rock climbing, and as soon as that last trip, the paddling trip's over, then it's just a rush to, okay, everything about rock climbing, and then we go rock climbing. And then get you ready for the winter trip, you know, and so that. So we keep kind of coursing through all those pieces, and it fits well in a semester. That other piece is this idea that when these kids come to the end of class, it's just what Barb said. They will. It is frequent that I hear in their final speech. They give a little final speech of how has ROPE changed me, and I give them a few prompts for that. Like I've become a better leader. I'm a better team player. Things like that. And frequently, kids, there's usually some tears somewhere in there, and this frequent comment is, I would have never hung out with you guys, but now you're my family.
Yeah.
It's something else. I'm like, is this like a Hallmark movie, or am I really watching, you know, what this guy was doing? So it's pretty impressive. Like I said, it's fun to kind of be on the sidelines and see that happening. Yeah?
Do we have any in place for the kids who may struggle to buy appropriate footwear or outer gear?
Yeah, so what we do is we definitely work really hard to make sure that that we can have full diversity of our, like you could say, whatever's going on in our school should be happening in ROPE class in terms of diversity.
Yeah.
And so that's what we shoot for. And it's a struggle. If we don't focus on that, the drift could be towards, kind of it could be a boys club, just like, outdoorsy stuff. So you'll notice in my PR, I'm always pushing like, oh, girls, this is for you, because that can still be part of our culture a little bit. It's going away, but that's still there. And getting a diverse ethnicity, and I've never had an issue. I have a diverse Like the IEP ratio is always the same, like about 30% I notice is in my classes, and that's usually true too in rope. So yeah, it's very inclusive. Kids know it, and we tell kids they really have to have their personal, they have to try to come to the table on a trip with their personal effects. I can't buy you clothing, like that's not quite what we're doing. Although now we have the thrift store, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
We go down there and we get some good stuff if they need it. I ask them if you need help with boots or whatever, we'll help you. But you do live in New Hampshire, so mom and dad, can you please make sure kids have boots and a winter jacket? That'd be awesome, right? So you're going to use those in other places, and rope. So we try to keep it economically certainly feasible. And we have, thankfully, and I'm really thankful that Tim allows me to have a lot of freedom to do fundraising, and it's just built into the program.
Awesome.
We rake leaves. You can see the kids right here are working on the CHS Memorial, the brick memorial that we had to move. We're rebuilding that. They rake leaves. We raised
You've
about
come to my house before.
Yes. We raised about $1,000 raking leaves. Because people are, and we do that because people are really generous because they know what we're about.
Yeah, there's no set price. They just come and you.
And so
for
I
a
just
donation,
say,
we'll rake
yeah, I
the
just
lawn.
say,
Here's $100.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where we ask for a donation.
Yeah.
And we're community service, and they like, well, what do you want? I used to recommend $50, and finally I had one woman say, like, Frank, that's crazy. It should be at least $100, that kind of thing. And so they know where the money's going. It all goes to rope equipment, so we can provide stoves, sleeping bags, sleeping pads, trekking packs, all the rock climbing gear. So a kid just has to show up, with their basic, clothes and food, and the rest we can take care of.
Awesome.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Go ahead, Sarah. Yeah.
The former Outward Bound instructor in me absolutely loves this, and I'm just so impressed with what you all are doing.
Same thing.
Yeah, and it makes me think of what we heard in the preschool presentation about risk and the role of risk in learning.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, what do your wait lists look like?
Well, actually, what's interesting, and I find it kind of fascinating, for my 11 years now, 11, 12, we always have about 50 kids sign up for rope, which really splits up into 25 per semester, because I can only do 2 semesters. We do a trip every month. That's 8 weekend trips that Bill and I do. My wife wouldn't let me do more than that, so we can't
You can't have
double,
2 sections.
we
right.
can't have more sections, okay? It's not gonna happen. But we have 50 kids sign up, that's 25 per semester. Jonathan Flower gives me the list, and then I diversify it. We just tell kids, sign up for rope. So then I can say, okay, I get a mix of seniors, juniors, sophomores, girls, boys, or whatever, just kind of mix it. And then the kids show up. And so those numbers have been extremely consistent, that where we don't have a wait list, but we're also filling the class. And I'm not sure how and why it works that way, but it's like we've hit a capacity of a school this size can handle a regular class of rope always happening. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's just because it's semester 1 and semester 2.
The weekend trips are mandatory. You can't get credit for the course unless you go on all 4 of them. And that's a burden. Kids who do sports, kids who have other weekend activities, kids who are in theater and stuff like that.
It culls.
It does.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
But in my mind, that's not a bad thing, because kids who are super actively involved in sports and other things are having the same outcomes in those activities.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So rope really gears to the kid that maybe is socially super loves hiking but isn't going to join a sport, like that.
Yeah.
that
They're not
kid's-
joining the soccer team.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
it does fulfill a,
And
it's interesting.
I do want to add a little bit. I think we can wrap it up, but we have a comprehensive permission form system. Kathleen and Tim check the trips and sign off on them, and I meet with Karen Fisher Anderson just to kind of stay out front of any issues, and she's looked through everything. And in addition, you need to be aware. Somebody brought it up. You can't take the risk out of rope. You can't take the risk out of rock climbing. And so it is just real for us. You certainly can protect against it and have prevention. And so we work really hard on that. In my 11 years on watch, so that's like about 50 trips or whatever. No, 100 trips.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was gonna- it's more
I know,
than
it's like, yeah, I was only doing one semester. It's about 100 trips. I can recall 2 accidents in this past decade. Yeah, so we don't have to get into too much. But one was a girl broke her ankle, and it was here practicing at the Evo climbing gym. So it wasn't even on a rope trip.
Yeah.
It was like associated with that. And then another kid fell on a bike once and hit his head hard enough that we thought we better get you checked out. And he was okay. It was a concussion. And so in 10 years, that's our safety track record. It's amazing, really, if you think about what we do. And so
right.
and we're proud of that. But I certainly am constantly looking at that. And Bill and I are wilderness first aid trained, and we maintain that certification. And we safety first is our motto. That's always what we're doing. So just so you're aware of that, and the kids learn that too. But high risk does also lead to high reward. You can't. The kids, I'd rather them taking chances with me in a controlled condition instead of going out and doing something wild without this type of protection involved. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? That they want to live, they want to feel alive, and this course allows that to happen in a little bit safer way.
Just a scotch. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, it's the best.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just add one thing. Mr.
Please
Harrison
do.
said a couple of times, being an observer and really just watching this, and he's selling him short very much. Frank is a remarkable classroom teacher, and he does an awful lot of work to create a remarkable culture in this course, and it's been a joy to observe. So
Thank you both for your commitment to our
Thank you.
students.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And the other fellow who came in was Sean Reese. He actually took the photo of the kids, and he says, he's a parent here in Concord. He lives in Concord. He's a resident. His girls went through the school. And he says, my wife, they met us on the rope trip and did the hike with us. And he says, my wife and I agreed that participating students were an impressive group. We admired their maturity and confidence and sometimes difficult circumstances, and especially how they had shared a sense of responsibility for the excursion and for each other. It was instructive seeing the leaders guide the students to challenge themselves and discover their capabilities, to exceed their expectations. It's been a decade since I've been around teenagers. Spending that weekend with Concord High students gave me renewed confidence in this generation that if they are representatives of the broader population, our future may be bright.
Oh, that feels good. Thank you both so much for being here and taking the time.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Ropes. We love that. I get to humble brag about all of the amazing resources and options that Concord School District provides to our students. We truly do stand out amongst our peers with all those offerings, and y'all are part of it. Thank you for carrying on the tradition of diversifying really important education options for kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it takes you guys being committed, right? And showing up, volunteering on the weekends, and that effort needs to be acknowledged. We do the budget. We know it's true.
Back in the envelope, it works out to be $6-7 an hour.
Yeah. There you go. Hey, you guys are the best. Thank you so much.
I love that it's still going on, because back in my day, it was like the hippie thing. You had the 60s instruction education and open concept and rope and all these bell-bottom pants hippie classes and
now it's best practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's like something we all kind of knew already.
See, people knew what we were doing back then.
I mean,
by the way.
You knew what you were doing. You still do.
Yeah, that's a problem sometimes. But we won't talk about that now. It's instructional committee.
All good. So, Dr. Herbert, thank you so much for joining us. I take it you're here to talk about physical education at Concord High School.
Which you just heard about one of our physical education electives.
Which is amazing.
This is like a bar night. I taught PE at Concord High.
I know.
Okay,
I was hoping you were going to be able to help me with
This
some
is,
of that.
All right.
yes, this
I'm
is
all in.
both nostalgic and informative.
Where would you like me
Let's
to begin?
do it. I mean, wherever you want.
So what I have here is a list of our current offerings and the standards and competencies for our PE program.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim, for helping us with that.
So, what's that? Okay, so the mission of the Concord High School PE and Health Department is to provide a 4-year experience for students all right, where they learn healthy lifestyles from nutrition to exercise and how to, truly bring those life skills off after high school and continue healthy living. Somewheres I know around, and Barb, this is where I may need your help, around the mid-90s, the school board in Concord decided to exceed the state minimum requirements of a year of PE and a half credit of health to make it a credit and a half of PE. That was a commitment at the time to getting students active. It was right about the time of that. It was the Play 60 era, where it was 60 minutes a day of physical education or
There was a
physical
smoke-free
activity.
class of 2000.
Yep.
There was a whole bunch of health initiatives back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I had just started teaching. There was the smoke-free class of 2000. There were all these, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it really came into fruition around that era. It was a school board collaboration with the PE department at the Concord High School to exceed the state requirements because of the way they are set up as half credit electives. For the most part, students could have a health PE experience each year of their high school career with 2 credits. But the board also at the time expanded what is considered an elective in the PE department, and Barb, you may be able to help me with this one too, is the Community Athletic Certificate and CHS Sport. So if a student were to have a experience outside of Concord High School's elective offerings, such as if they went to first aid at the American Red Cross in Concord, that meets the competencies of our CPR first aid class, they could be awarded the half credit that we would award for our course. Or if they participate in a CHS varsity sport for multiple years, each year they can get up to half credit of PE through that for the physical activity pieces. The state minimum requirements do require we hit the standards that I passed out. They are standards for SHAPE, as well as it's a National Association of Physical Education and Sport standards. We are required to hit those standards and through our courses. So there are some things that do have to go beyond the sports field or may have to, the health curriculum that we cover is important to healthy lifestyles and decisions. So there's other aspects that do really happen in the classroom at Concord High School, but it is probably one of the most flexible and offerings of a department that you can find at the high school. What can be considered for credit? They work with local karate studios. They students who are have gone through like a recent surgery that sidelines them from being able to participate in physical education. Their PT program, following that, keeping a journal on that, and talking about the benchmarks they make along the way is considered a PE ELO. So this is probably one of the most remarkable diverse offerings of any department I think I have at Concord High School because of how much they can be flexible and use those standards and apply them in different areas.
Along with the sports one, so my daughter Gracie obviously had a pretty rough high school experience after losing Molly. And so she missed a ton of PE and she became a senior and had all this stuff to make up. So she's a competitive dancer, so she kept a journal of her dance classes and what she did for like a 3-week period of time and 2 competitions, and we got video, like a CD. And then she did a CrossFit competition, and so she submitted all of that, so the training for the CrossFit competition. And then she was a counselor at track camp, so she had to set up activities for kids. So she got like an entire PE credit for those 3 things. They were all things that she would have done anyway, but when the school was really good at looking at all of these things that she's doing that meet all of these competencies. So I know she's not the only one that falls under that. I know sometimes there are complaints. Lots of families want all the sports. Like if you're a 3-season athlete, why do you need PE? Well, okay, yes, one quarter PE credit would make sense for a sport, but there are other things that you learn in PE that you don't learn in sports.
Yeah.
So there are also
shown
some
by these standards.
Yeah. So some when parents complain to me like, she's a 3-season athlete, why does she need PE? Well, because I don't know that your basketball coach necessarily talks about diet or health or body weight or cardiovascular prevention or any of all those other cancer screenings, like all the things that you learn.
Yeah, you're hitting the nail right on the head with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Barb, I'm really grateful that you brought that story forward because it leads into my question. I know that we have a Learn Everywhere program that's administered through the DOE, and I've found through a lot of my experience that using that sort of the loss leader, if you will, of sort of like PE geared options. Could you please take this opportunity to explain to folks why a PE ELO is more beneficial to a student as opposed to utilizing a Learn Everywhere program for that same credit?
When you're doing the I think they both have their benefits, and sometimes a PE ELO overlaps what some would consider a Learn Everywhere. Like let's take the karate studio. Scenario. We have a number of karate studios in Concord that have Learn Everywhere designation. At the same time, we also have students who say, I want to do a PELO, and they're at the karate studio. When they do that, they have weekly meetings with an ELO, what's the word I'm looking, coach, helps them organize a portfolio. They discuss their journey, and it encompasses in the end, and oftentimes they're inviting individuals from the karate studio that provided the instruction, their coaches there, they invite parents in, and they do a culminating project presentation where they talk about their journey, and they also tie it into how they hit the standards and what healthy lifestyles, healthy habits that they're taking from this situation and bring it on with them afterwards. So there is when you do the Learn Everywhere, there's a focus on the area of expertise that the individual in those settings have. In the karate studio, they're going to teach you karate, and you're going to go through the experience, and we acknowledge it as a Learn Everywhere credit. With the with the karate experience as a PE ELO, we're asking you to think, how does that tie into your decisions moving forward? How is it going to impact you in the long run? What skills are you going to take, and how could you apply them in different situations? And you get the opportunity to share that with both your family, the karate studio instructor, as well as your coach from Concord High School. And the coach happens to be a certified educator as well. So all those things, you get more. I see more support and more of a reflection around a PE ELO to tie it into your educational experience and your pathway to after I graduate high school. With the Learn Everywhere, you get an experience, and we acknowledge it as well as for credit.
It's a very diplomatic answer. And I think what I'm hearing from you is an ELO is a more robust experience that goes hand in hand with the district and the standards the district is required to maintain, whereas Learn Everywhere does not.
What is Learn Everywhere?
Learn Everywhere is a pet program of our current commissioner where the Board of Education approves specific options that takes students, it leapfrogs over the ELO portion and makes available to kids certain learning opportunities that have never gone through the rigorous, what we do to clear curriculum. So it's pretty much the Board of Education saying, the State Board of Ed saying, this is good enough, and we don't need to consult with your teachers and your district. You can just go do this, and your district
that
is
rubs me the wrong way.
required to accept the credit.
We've been very fortunate. The DOE does put it out there to educators participate in it, and I have been insistent that educators from my departments participate in those to essentially provide their professional judgment on the quality of the ELO, the credit being awarded, and does it have integrity?
So what's an example of a Learn Everywhere opportunity?
PragerU is a Learn Everywhere opportunity. The karate school, there's a couple of dojos, there's a soccer program that, it's pretty much open to anyone.
There's a website, Barb, that lists them.
I'm gonna check it out. Yeah, I'm just not.
I think you, as an educator, you'd be very interested in that whole path. And I didn't mean to digress. I just wanted folks to understand that there is more benefit, in my professional opinion, to an ELO as opposed to a Learn Everywhere option. And a lot of folks can kind of see physical education and health classes as flippant, potentially, to the detriment of their student. And so putting them in a Learn Everywhere program, I'm not speaking on behalf of the district, I see that as less robust and rigorous compared to an ELO.
I think the ELO, you have that coaching and a focus
Exactly.
on where does this fall into my long-term plan?
Yes.
I'm not going to speak for all Learn Everywheres, but the ones that I've experienced, that's not the focus. It's just essentially the skills you pick up at the site, and they are good skills. And there's the student has an interest, that's why they're going there. But to tie it into the big picture, where am I going after Concord High School? The ELO, that's the whole focus.
how does
Well, there's a
What's
whole
your task?
conversation around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That involves a lot of adults. So yeah, thank you for
Yeah, no
humoring
problem.
me and taking that opportunity. Go ahead, Barb.
So I'm just looking at, so when I taught health and PE at Concord High School, freshmen had a quarter of PE, a quarter of health, and then a quarter of personal fitness, which was like a classroom PE class around nutrition and all that kind of stuff. And then sophomore year, they took a quarter of PE, and then junior year, another quarter of health. So it was divided like that. So I notice now that it's a semester-long
Yep.
class. So my assumption is they've taken health, PE, and personal fitness and created 2 semester-long classes.
Close to it, yep.
Yeah, so here's what I like about it. One of the hardest parts for me as a health educator was the kids I had the first 9 weeks of ninth grade and the kids I had the last 9 weeks of ninth grade needed a completely different curriculum.
Yeah.
There was nothing okay about the standard curriculum either way. This way, even if you're a second semester, you're still only halfway through ninth grade. Like, I feel like, and you know your students much longer. That was also, by the time I got to know them, it was,
Time
you
to
know,
go.
time to go.
That's all, you just hit it better than I could have. Those were the reasons that the department said we really should move in this direction.
Yeah.
So credit them with that. They were
Yeah.
saying the exact same thing.
No, that was really smart.
Yeah.
And there was a big disconnect too with health. Like a lot of PE teachers, like, I'm not teaching health because you have to talk about all the uncomfortable stuff, which is my jam. So I would always have 5 health classes a semester, and maybe 1 or 2 PE if there was overflow. This way, it must be integrated. Everyone must teach everything.
Yes.
Which is going to make a better department.
Yep.
So,
Cool.
yeah, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments while you
No,
have me?
Thank you for bringing this
Yeah, no
forward
problem.
and shedding some light on what can often feel like an obscure aspect of a high school experience. Answered a lot of questions for us and will live in perpetuity. Oh, go ahead.
Just a comment.
Yeah. Can you
Yeah, mine.
you got it.
The reason for this presentation tonight, I think there was some concern from parents around acquisition of the credits. And so we asked, obviously Kim brought Tim tonight so that you could get an explanation and about the various ways in which you can attain those credits.
Right.
Nice.
Because we know that some of our kids at the high school, Tim can probably say this better than I, but we have some youngsters who are maybe taking AP or, different classes, or they're over at the Career and Technical Center, right?
Right,
And
right.
so what happens, their schedule can get very demanding, and we know that some of them even took, well, not even, but some youngsters took VLAX classes in order to attain a PE credit.
Right.
So we just want to make sure that everyone knows there's lots of options
Right.
in order to attain that, especially with student schedules. And it isn't just kids who are at
Right,
CTE or kids who are in AP.
Right.
It could be youngsters that are, maybe they go to a tutoring session and that prevents them from.
Right.
You only have so many hours in a day.
In my 11 years at VLAX, 90% of my health and PE students were kids that were in orchestra, band. Their days were packed, and they needed, I have, sometimes band, if it's every day, that's like 2 classes worth of class time. I also know the CRTC, like health sciences, they don't have to take health. They can opt out. Now that it's combined, I'm not sure how that would work. Because the PE piece is involved in the class now, so that's a little bit different.
But we still have, that's where you get where the kids will do, there could be the PE ELO, or if it's
Yes.
like World Games or something
Yes,
like
yes,
that they
yeah.
take that's very PE specific and
Yeah.
not integrated health PE class.
Yeah.
So that's how we do handle that, or if it's dance or something
Yeah.
of that nature,
Yeah.
it's the PE
I
credit.
also think that the decision that was made by the district many years ago to increase that amount of credit also does, in the eyes of some, that's an extra burden in terms of the child trying to complete all the credits that they need. So I just want you to know
Yeah.
why this
think-
conversation came up.
And I think the important thing to understand is, although the credit exceeds, there are, I don't know, again, any other department where there's as many vast opportunities to obtain the credit. And the motivation to increasing the credit was to ensure that students developed healthy lifestyles
Right.
and physical activity and would have that experience throughout their 4 years at Concord High School. And they're leaving with those skills after Concord High School. So it was really a big push to keep kids active.
Well, and I remember I was on the committee when we came with trying to come up with new electives. So dance, yoga, self-defense for women, that was all sort of toward the end of my teaching career. And those kids sign up for that stuff. It's,
Yep.
you can get a CPR first aid certificate and a PE credit.
Yep.
And you don't have to pay.
Twist my arm.
Yeah. So we also offer, the classes themselves are interesting and varied and stuff like that.
Yeah, which you've been very generous to give us an outline of that too. Any final questions for Dr.
Sorry.
Herbert?
How many credits are we above the state?
A half.
Half a credit.
Okay, and you find that you're, I don't know if this is a weird question to ask you, but you still feel like that is the right thing to do?
I do. I do. I think it does ensure students have a variety of opportunities to have the semester-long courses
Yep.
to experience physical activity or a health class where they're going to learn valuable skills, especially nowadays where we're so attached to our screens. We're learning about the harm there, the SEL. I think physical activity sometimes gets overlooked as just, as Kathleen shared, that some may look at it as being burdensome, but it's also breaking the day from the daily grind.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
That was helpful.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Herbert, for being
Welcome.
our fearless leader at CHS and for showing up all the
Thank
time.
you.
We appreciate you.
What's Relax?
Virtual
Excellent.
Learning Academy Charter School. It's a charter school in New Hampshire that's all online.
And it's free. It's a public
I know
school.
you're Yeah, it's a
public
so any
school.
kiddo can use it.
Yeah, and they have elementary now. So during COVID, when no one had work, I was like raking in the money because I had
my kids were on VLAX.
I had,
Yeah,
so I
for
did
extra.
their first year of kindergarten.
Yeah.
There is nothing better than a 5-year-old boy in a Zoom call. I'm just going to leave it there. best 30 minutes of my life.
That's amazing.
But basically, they have elementary, middle school, and high school. They started as just high school. They also have an incredible connection with Southern New Hampshire University, college credits and all that kind of stuff, and an associate's degree program. So I found when I first started teaching there, it was like 2013, 2012. It was health and PE, and so many of my students were public school students that just couldn't fit.
Yeah.
They needed to get I had a ton of Concord students. I remember, I'm like, oh my God, Barb, So, and it was, but it's a nice option. I will say, I know that there are people that think, why do we have to have extra? We're not asking our kids to take an extra chemistry class all year long. We're asking our kids to spend a little bit of time doing something that's going to make the body that they live in better and healthier. Yeah. And to me, it's a statement to our students that we care about them.
Yeah.
And we have these amazing classes and huge flexibility. Like Gracie's, I actually was involved with a student just last year, a Concord High student whose parent was freaking out. I'm like, here, try this, and this. And it was not a problem. It was taken care of.
Yeah.
It was Steve, one of his last, I call him up, hey. But he took care of it. He just sat down with a family and they looked at he's like, look at all this you have. And they organized it and took care of it.
Yeah,
So,
I think folks forget that districts do have the ability to be very flexible
Yes,
when it comes
yes.
to experiences
Yes.
students are having
Yeah.
and tailoring their education appropriately.
Correct.
It's not just limited to kiddos on IEPs or anything like that. It's however you're interacting with your community,
Right.
everything is curriculum.
Yeah.
And I believe that Concord has often jumped on with students having out of classroom experiences as an opportunity
Yeah.
that they can offer to future students as well. So
Yeah.
even if it hasn't been explored yet,
Right.
I know our administrative team is consistently looking at this as let's do some learning together.
Right, yeah.
If you're the first one to do it, let's go on an adventure.
exactly.
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 Wonderful. Lots of robust discussion tonight on
Yeah,
wonderful
this
programming.
was the best. See, this is the best
This
committee
is the
ever.
best committee.
Sorry.
Hands down.
You're stuck with me. I'm not leaving.
Not just because we're all amazing. Our last thing on the agenda is the annual enrollment report. Superintendent,
It's your favorite.
your favorite
We've
thing.
got 3
I'm
tough acts
afraid
to follow.
I don't want to
so-
ruin the meeting.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Come
with-
back down,
with,
folks.
significant data. Certainly.
Did everybody get one of these?
Yeah.
Every
didn't, Jess?
you didn't, Jess.
Oh, maybe I did, and I just.
No, it's huge. I'll give you this.
Here.
Here you go. She's got it, Barb.
Got it.
Yeah, I thought we made enough copies. Thanks.
Kim has a stack of paper.
This
over here.
doesn't come close to the preschool program or the ropes or even
this is a bit
PE and
counter to
health,
that.
but this is an important document. I'm not gonna go page by page because I'm gonna let you take it home and read it and try to understand it. But just know that this is the latest data. We spent, Bridget and I spent a lot of time making sure that it was accurate so that you have a good understanding of all of your staff and all of the folks that are here to support children. It also is a great tool for you as we hit and as we come close to budget. So you'll see this again because I will bring it back. But we always bring it to the instructional committee first, so we can just kind of walk through it. So I'm going to do it very quickly because Kim told me I had 8 minutes. So
She has a goal.
yeah. So the first, page, you can see it, 1 of 3. You'll see how we broke it down. That's all the big district-wide positions. My only advice to you is if you see something that doesn't make sense to you after you take time to read through it, highlight it, take a highlighter, mark it red. If you have a question now, jump in. But I can do that. And so that's pretty much the district-wide positions. Now, that might be a surprise to you for some of them because we have people that float around. I think you heard that tonight. We have people that aren't just located in one site. That includes all the student services folks, as well as the central office, maintenance, and transportation. So all that information is included in there. For your pleasure. District staffing, we also on page 1 of 1, I'm just going to follow right through. Additional staffing, those are all contracted services, just so you know. We contract services. We're not able to hire. John needs to get out, provide support for our students, and we've been fairly successful at making sure we're up. You heard the staffing report from Michelle last week. We were in good places.
Compared to other districts?
Yeah, we were really good, and part of it is because we've been able to recruit, but we also have been able to use some of our local agencies to help us with some positions to support our kids. So that's what you're seeing right there on that page.
I'll note that the contracted services, if folks are concerned about the budget coming up, these things are out of our hands.
Right.
We are federal law requires us to provide these services.
That's right.
No matter the cost.
Right. I mean, we're obligated to those IEPs.
As we should be.
And rightly so.
Yep.
And so we need to make sure that we have the services, and like I said, John's done a great job at making sure we have that. I mean, even today, he told me at the high school, we're totally staffed in our programs at the high school, in our special programs. That's, how long it's taken us to get there?
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I agree,
Way to go.
Sarah. We've been,
Busting your
dragging
butts.
on that.
Yeah.
And so that was great news.
Excellent.
You always get questions about enrollment, right? What's happening? Where's the pluses and minuses? So we gave you a 10-year picture that will show the enrollments over the history of the district. And so I hope that's of some help to you, knowing where we were 10 years ago and where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 10 years is a generational shift.
Right. And don't
it's a
forget,
very
we
different
had
environment for
we
parents
had
now.
that very much that pandemic in the middle of this, and it really sent it. You can
changed
find that.
everything.
You can see the numbers where. Take a look at 2021, just in the elementary school. Look at that,
Yeah.
168.
Yeah.
That's because kids left, went to wherever they could go. To some schools stayed open for whatever reasons, and we were not able to do that, and so we saw a flight of students. But then again, at the same time, you didn't see that as great at the middle school, so it was really affected us at the elementary level.
Probably in the K1 and 2 space. Yeah, where you can usually find private options.
So everybody will say, "Oh, look at all the kids we've lost." Blah 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 blah. But when you think about it, we have 7 sites. So when you take the total and you divide it by 7 sites and grade levels, it's really, it breaks it down. You don't lose a lot of classes. Are you following me on this idea?
Yeah.
You don't lose enough to get rid of staff.
Right. We've done that a little bit.
This
You've
is the
done it,
school
and
funding
it was
conundrum.
painful,
Yes.
right?
Right, yeah.
But we held on. We watched those numbers this year, and it looks like we're okay, right? We won't be coming back to you at elementary level or middle level for any cuts in the budget. We're not requesting that, just to give you a little heads up.
Thank you.
We're looking closely at the high school. We're looking at the numbers, what's the class sizes, what programs, and all that. But we haven't quite finished with that yet for budget purposes.
You've got time.
Anyway, then we broke it out into elementary. So if you look at the first section is elementary, just again, gives you a 10-year history with each of the individual schools, kind of showing you, like everyone, New Hampshire has had a history of losing students. We are seeing an uptick on some new families arriving. We've seen some new ones from Accentria. We also got notice this week from one of the local churches,
Unitarian Universalist?
Thank you.
They do a great job with
Yeah, and so
immigrant
we have a new
families.
family coming in, and so it's a family of 4, so we think there's 2 kids, and one of them is starting school, 1st grade. So, yeah, we're kind of excited about that. So we're seeing some of that coming in, so just so you know.
I mean, in-migration is the only way that New Hampshire's population has
Right,
grown.
right.
I mean,
But we have grown in New Hampshire. We are one of the few states that grew. So, then we went into class size, which is a big deal. If you continue to move through the elementary, you'll see class sizes for each of the schools. That'll be another way in which you want to determine, is there a place, the class size is so small that we could reduce? I don't think you'll see that.
not at this time.
You will not see that right now. I think you did it and took care of it last year, and I don't think you'll see that this year.
Excellent. We love hearing that.
I do.
Fun
I do
last
too.
year.
I do too. And again, you'll see the elementary school staffing and the kinds of things that were happening across and the different positions. If you look at regular ed, the 1100 series, you'll see the teachers that we have in that area, and you can see where you see classroom teacher, you'll see the 4 that you cut last year.
Yeah,
All right. So you'll see a -4.
yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, and that was the decisions that you made last year to try to maintain a small increase in your budget.
And those math coaches right below, that was grant funded that ended, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Those
it
were
was,
all, those were
Well,
the
and then we
5.
funded them for another year. We get a lot of
We did.
crap for cutting them, but
Yeah.
We
did
gave
the best-
them,
You
Right,
gave
right.
them 3 years, by the way.
Yeah.
You gave them 3 years. And I think those 3 years have paid off. I think there is benefits from that. I think our teachers learned a lot, and I think that Chantel, your coordinator, continues with that and supports that work. And we feel like we got a good bang for our buck on that from the grant. But
happy to hear it.
maintaining it was almost $800,000.
You can't,
Yeah, it's a hard.
we're squeezing blood from a stone.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
you have a responsibility.
Yeah.
Again, if you look at student services, of course, John's sitting across from me, so he has a good handle on that. But for the most part, you didn't see any changes at all in the. Although he did do one program change with autism, and made it more of a general kind of an approach, right, in terms of that. Go ahead, John, jump in.
Yeah, I did, and I just went to contracted services for some of the autism. That's why you saw an increase last year in my contracted services. I moved kind of a position back into a regular ed case manager, and I needed to support that, with the BCBA from the outside, that we did that last year.
Again, if you're looking at this and you're looking at page 2 and 3 of 3 in this elementary breakdown, you'll notice special ed instructional assistants. You'll notice that we added 11.6.
Holy moly.
So I know people were concerned that we weren't trying to get staff to support some of our youngsters, but we did. In fact, by putting in 11 plus positions. So that just gives you the documentation to see that
Yep.
over time. Preschool enrollment, well, when we did it in December, it was 121. I'm just saying she gave the number tonight was
moving
129. I think that was
Yeah.
that's what she said. So it does change every day because
Yeah.
of their births. You said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can come in whenever you turn 3.
Yep.
So, or 4. And then here's the staffing. You got a chance to meet some of our staff. They're terrific, do a great job, but these are spread out across all of the schools. And I think that we will have conversation about another program. Right now, Beaver Meadow has 3 programs. A lot of those students are Krista McAuliffe area.
Yeah, when-
And
yeah, it
so
used to
we'd
be a-
like to
yeah.
bring them back to their home school.
Right. It
but
was never,
I'm
Kimball and
sorry.
then Chris McAuliffe has never had a preschool. So like when Gracie and Molly went, we were Kimball School
Yeah,
family.
yeah.
It was at Conant, which is where Abbott Downing is now. So there's always been one magnet, and then Beaver Meadow had one, and there was one on the east side.
Yeah.
So there's
But we-
always been 3.
Yeah, but we think
No,
we're
it's-
gonna,
we
we
have
think we're,
numbers now,
yeah,
right.
we're, numbers are up, and we're transporting youngsters from the Chris McAuliffe area out to Beaver Meadow.
Yeah, 'cause we've
and-
got a bus
And
to-
these are little guys, right? And so, we would like, to be able to keep them
was
to their
Gracie's
home
favorite
school.
part of
And the numbers are there. The numbers are there to do that. But it depends on a available classroom. So we did an analysis of what classroom space would be available. So it's going to be dependent on what Krista has for kindergarten. So everything is,
That feels
Yeah.
really wonky that the necessity of a preschool classroom is dependent upon the birth rate of our 5-year-olds.
well, the problem is that I don't have a classroom.
Oh, no, I know, there's no room
Right,
there.
right.
Yeah,
If there's
I
room,
get it.
go ahead, John.
Yeah, in its location, you can't, you have certain requirements of where it can be.
Yeah.
And it comes into a lot more restrictions than typical classroom. It's got to have space, it's got to have size, bathroom accessibility, all
Yeah.
the things, services, OT, PT,
It can't
speech
just be
have to be
any
very
classroom.
close to it.
Right.
These are 3 and 4-year-olds. They don't travel as well as a
Yeah.
5th grader. So you have to make sure that when you're planning this, you're planning it in a location that's accessible for everything. And although we may say, well, the numbers work and they have a classroom, it's where that classroom is determined and what's happening. And that's kind of, we didn't build the buildings to have this dedicated space.
We didn't even
And
build
now
the
it's-
buildings for full-day kindergarten.
Right.
I mean,
I was here.
Hindsight's
It was
20/20.
ugly. It was
Yeah.
bad. Well, we talked about it, but
Kathleen, on
I
this
wasn't charged.
subject, I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right.
So Just Lands,
go.
when I'm thinking about retreat topics, preschool would be an awesome thing to go over, because I know it's something I think a lot of us get excited about, maybe your vision for the future, or what it
Right.
would look like in the future, and it could be a lot of an
Well,
exploratory
well, it is in your
conversation, but-
strategic plan. I mean, it's in the last year of the plan, but we have universal pre-K, at least the discussions about pre-K. I mean, we've heard all night how important it is, but
I mean, your return on investment
it's huge.
is like $1.50
Yeah.
for every dollar spent. I mean, it's a money maker for your local economy to accommodate kiddos' birth through age 5 before they enter into the public school system.
And I don't want to get into this, but one of my issues around that is in the district in taking over the, universal pre-K. I do not want to put people in our community out of business. So how do you continue to buy seats in the preschool with some agreements of curriculum and training and all that, and work
Multi-delivery
with
system.
them
Yeah.
and make them part of the system and still do what we need to do for youngsters so that all children have a chance. We hear that. There's a subcommittee in our equity group, our equity advisory on early learning.
Awesome.
Myself, Ruth from Broken Ground, Kyle is the principal. We also have a parent on it, and it's a small subgroup, and we're talking about early learning. We wanted to have you come in and talk with us too.
Well,
so-
friend, let's have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's an important issue for our families. It came up in our equity work, district-wide equity work.
Oh my gosh,
Ad-
it is
ad-
the game changer.
Yeah, so
It truly is.
just so you know that.
Yeah. If
It
I
is a
wanna
great
see
topic.
improved
I'm going to send out
outcomes,
an
getting
email
kids
and
ready.
ask for ideas and
Please
work
put that
with
on the
Pam.
list.
Yeah.
I'm grateful you brought it
The
up.
next section, it's a whole big section. I'm not going to go page by page, but it's all Runlet. It's all your middle school. You'll see all of the all of the staffing across the board, where the changes in the enrollment have been since again, another 10-year picture of enrollment. So it's steady. It seems a little more steady of late, the numbers at Runlet. You'll also see the staffing. Remember, those are teams. They're all 4-member teams. Each grade level has 3 teams of 4 at each grade level, so that's how it's broken out. It's a little bit more difficult in terms of class size, but we do look at class size, and you can see that. If you keep flipping the page, you'll see average class sizes
Yeah.
based on the teams and based on each grade level.
Well, those are good numbers.
Yeah, they are very good numbers. And they all fit within your policy on class size.
Great.
I can't I would be remiss if I didn't show you the performing arts and the 5-year history there and students' involvement. It's a big deal over there between the plays with Peg and the band and the orchestra and the string instruments and so forth. That's a very important part of the youngsters. As you know, last year you made a significant contribution in the budget to buy more instruments so that we didn't have to worry about youngsters who might not be able to rent an instrument. Can be very expensive, or purchase one. So the district increased instruments at elementary, middle, and high last year in your budget. So we bought all those new instruments.
It's becoming the thing in my experience that 4th graders, because they can start to participate in the performing arts, all the cool kids play an instrument lately. Which is such, when I went, I mean,
Not the case.
that's when I went to high school or went to school, that was not an option for kids at 4th grade to have access to music
I took
education.
violin in 3rd grade, right in this room,
Did you?
See?
with Mrs. Doyle.
I love that.
Picture, please.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh my
I have
gosh,
I have this vision.
I had a
have this
concert right
vision.
here, and all the parents sat right there.
Oh, I love that.
And the next section is on Concord High School. This one has much more detail, as you
Yeah.
can see, because you're talking about here's the enrollment history, of course, on the first page, and then you'll be looking at class size and class load. You'll see some that are large. It's a music program.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's a PE program where the class sizes are much bigger, much larger. But for the most part, I think you'll see that it focuses in. You see a small number for reading. Remember that's where students are getting specific attention around reading if there's been some, needing some extra help in reading. So that is always going to be a smaller class.
Yeah.
But again, I want you to kind of take some time and review this when you have, it's not, this time of night.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to see exactly where the kids are and what we have for staffing.
Oh, I love that you've broken it down into, these are all of the sections of English 9, and these
Yeah.
are all of the number
Right,
of kids in
right.
each class. That's really
Right.
helpful.
And so that's what we're using right now to look at Tim's class sizes.
Yeah.
And is there any wiggle room there? I know nobody wants to hear that, but
Yeah.
we have an obligation to do that. If
Yep.
I didn't do that, I would be remiss, honestly,
Yeah.
in my responsibility. So
Of course.
we are looking at these numbers. These are the numbers we're going to use. We're not going to wait for signups. Signups happen in March. And then it isn't the same when it
No.
comes October. The numbers are different.
It's like preschool enrollment.
Yeah, so we're going to use these numbers as we think about budget, rather than
Yeah.
anticipating what kids signed up for, because they sign up for something and then they decide to drop it, or,
Right,
And
right.
I get that. So you'll see all the courses that are offered at Concord High School all through these pages, okay? So take a peek at those. We also wanted to alert you to any class that was fewer than 15. You'll have to scroll through some classes, but you'll see like an AP Art class. That's a new class that we just did last year.
But it's only one person short.
It's only,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, tell me that, yeah.
Some business classes. You'll see some in math, music, specialized music. So we'll be talking some more with Tim about that and making sure that we we're using our staff wisely.
Well, I will say, when you look at in foreign language,
There's not many.
they combine like.
Yeah, they do.
German
Yeah,
5 and all
they'll
this.
have,
So yeah, there's only 4 in French 5, but they're in a French 4 class.
Right.
It's not a
Right.
separate,
Yeah.
and the teachers,
Right.
navigate
It's almost
it
like
that.
elementary when you have different reading levels.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
same thing, yeah. they do
Then
that.
all your staff, everybody who's at the high school, all the positions in the high school is all laid out for you to review.
Oh my gosh, then CRTs.
And then you're going to look at CRT. This is one of our new pictures I think this is so representational of our program, right?
really is.
I think some of you have had experienced that. So here's the enrollment. It includes all of our sending schools, so you'll get a chance to see any changes in terms of the enrollment. Our enrollment is staying fairly steady, but there's a slight decrease in some areas.
Well, Kathleen, you've told us before that we turn down a significant number of students for CRTC every year because we lack the physical space for them.
That's right.
So could we sort of hypothesize through these numbers that a 5-year change of, like, let me see, total high school students, a negative, like a decrease by 6.55%, theoretically, that's only because we can't accommodate those like 250 kids a year. Am I
Right.
correct?
Yeah, and you got to remember that our program is first year. We have a high number in first year. I think you've seen that
And then you move
enrollment.
to second.
Second year it goes down. They have some responsibility of meeting some expectations for second
Yeah, so
year.
there are like 2 sections of the education program. Second year, there's only 1 because they
Right.
have to be approved for the second year.
Right.
So it's not a decline because there's not room.
But if we had more room and space, and
could do more
we
first
could do
years.
more.
Yeah.
I think, we've talked about 3 areas that they wanted to increase on. They wanted to increase cybersecurity is a big one. Anything around that area is huge right now. They also wanted to increase their,
Was it automotive?
no, it was part of the home construction. Welding, thank
Oh,
you.
yes, they've been begging
It's
for
huge. I
welding.
just couldn't
Yeah.
think about it. And so that was a second program, and the third program was around computer programming. And so those 3 areas have been very much, the advisories are sharing that information with Ann. Each program has an advisory, and they give her sort of their input around what we need for a new program. Of course, the health one is huge.
Oh, yeah.
The emergency management, emergency stuff with EMTs and firefighters
Yeah.
is huge. These kids are getting offers before they even walk out our door.
They're already riding on fire
Right.
trucks before they've
Right.
graduated. Yeah,
and
it's
they're
real.
the cities and towns around us are promising they'll pay for their 2-year, at community college where the programs are, and so that they can have firefighters and EMTs when they finish. So these kids are really in great places for these programs. So,
So
you'll
proud of
see
them for
all of
doing
that. You'll see the trends in enrollment for each town, each city and town. They have to let all kids go. There used to be a time when they would say, well, we could only send so many kids because of the costs. But now they can't do that. They have to have it open. So we're in, and this is the season where they go out and recruit. Our team goes out to all of the sending schools. They put on a performance, if you will, similar to what you saw tonight in the ropes, right?
Yep.
That kind of presentation, and to all the schools and talk to them.
Nice.
Jack and Ann both finished contracts, 4-year contracts with all of the communities. So we'll be delivering those and hand delivering them.
That was a lot of work on everyone's part because of the new laws put in
Right,
place about
right.
needing to coordinate everyone's schedules. So, tip of the hat to the team that worked on that.
Yeah,
We're
they
very
did a
proud
great
of
job. And then we had it reviewed by Dean and his associate Allison.
Love it.
To make sure the contract met the needs of everybody, and we're good to go.
That's
So,
great. Thank you.
again, you'll see all of the, also enrollment over time in all the programs, so take a look at that too. It's the very last page, but it gives you an idea of what youngsters are choosing, and Ann keeps a close eye on that.
Yeah.
She does such a great job.
Student
Truly.
service enrollment with John. This is John's favorite topic, student on IEPs and what the numbers are and what the percentages are of enrollment in our program. So we kind of pulled out some specific numbers around special education. We haven't done it like this. This is more detail, which I
Yeah.
think is important.
You-
Budget-wise,
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, you'll see a trend. I mean, there's an increasing trend, but there is everywhere. But you'll see it's not a crazy jump. It's a very steady over time, and that's what we wanted to show you on that. That it has, you're talking over the course of time, 2%, 2%. It's not like it's gone up and jumped like and you saw the referral numbers. I mean, those are affecting in those preschool identified students eventually get older and they move through the system and along the way. So you're seeing, but it's steady. It's what it is. But I think that there's some areas that I'll talk about, with our related service providers, our speech and our OT and things like that. We haven't really done a lot of work there. We've done some work with our contracted services and our teaching staff. That area we may have to look at this year a little bit, some of our caseloads still. So,
Okay.
But I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I think one thing that the district can be proud of is the page on out-of-district students, and, you have a very small number of students, given, 1,400 students.
Yeah.
Almost 4,000 students, and you have a very small number of out-of-district placement. Now, some of these that we see, as you can see across on that page, there's some of them that are placed by courts and as well as foster placement. So those we don't have any control over. But certainly, and a parent, we've had parents place youngsters. And so that was a parental prerogative, if you will. But for the most part, when you think about it, we don't have a lot of kids who leave their natural settings, which is awesome.
Yeah.
They belong home with their peers, if we can do it. And we can't do it with everybody, I wish we could. Charter schools, we provide services to charter schools, so there's some more information on the charter schools. And Bridget was great, she put the charter schools that we're dealing with.
Those pages.
Here, look with me.
What, you don't have this page?
No, it stopped at CRTC overall enrollment.
Huh.
Yeah, mine did too.
They cut you short?
That's okay. I guess.
Yeah, she can look at mine.
We can share.
I'll have to make sure those are right.
No, it's okay.
I get them.
You know where everyone.
And again, the next page is your English language learners. You get a breakdown of that, of each of the schools. Again, we see a bit of an uptick in the elementary. But by the way, at the high school, guess what? You see it going down because you put your effort in the youngsters, as you heard today from our preschool teachers. You focus your effort on that area, and lo and behold, what happens at the high school?
The numbers go down.
You don't need it. You might have you monitor them. Keep an eye on them, make sure, especially not so much about speech, regular language, fluent language, verbal. It's the comprehension that sometimes get kids.
Yeah.
So we always want to keep an eye, especially at middle and high, we keep an eye on that.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can see that happens at the high school. Am I okay here? Yeah, you agree? And then here's all the languages and the different languages that we have in the district, 30 languages. So it keeps our folks busy. Last one is what we deem as homeless, our homeless students. We actually did see a little bit of a downtick, so I was happy about that. But that fluctuates. That's another one of those things that you say, oh, it looks like, and then it turns around, and it gets, the numbers jump up. So I say right now, today, I'm kind of happy because I saw the numbers come down a little bit, but that's variable. Go ahead, jump in.
Okay, the high water mark was 125, right?
Yeah, that was last year, right, John?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and we use our McKinney-Vento and district, but you saw what happened with your transportation, and we share. I mean, we often share with districts, but our transportation has been really challenging.
I mean, it's not just us,
And
it's everybody.
I think that number two is we've as of time, McKinney-Vento has been around for a little bit now. We've learned really about a needs assessment, and we're much more in line with a needs assessment every year. We have families go through it to make sure it's still an identifiable area of need for them, and because, we have, of course, there's newer families and things happen and things change and go out, but there's also families that maintain permanency in a house, in a stable environment. It just takes them a while to get there. And we coach them and help them and provide what they need to help them be in a stable environment. So it's part of the work we do.
Thanks, John.
So I'm done, unless you
Okay.
have questions, but this will be a document that will be valuable to you during
Yes.
budget season.
It sure will.
very
Thank you very much, and
Thank
looking
you.
forward to a copy of this
Special
getting into the
shout
hands
out
of
to
everyone.
Bridget, and she did a
Oh,
lot of
Bridget.
work. And
She's a
we went
superhero.
to make sure that the numbers really were
Yeah.
absolute, and worked with a lot of departments to make sure they were right. So
We love Bridget.
yeah, she's
the
great.
best.
Appreciate it.
Excellent. If there are no more questions for Kathleen, any follow-up from any of the conversations that we've had tonight? Anybody feel like we're satisfied with the wonderful information and presentations? And thank you very much for the detailed report out on enrollment. At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Aye. We're now adjourned.
Your first committee meeting.
I don't know why I'm this excited.
I know, I'm so excited.
This is the work of it.